Good morning, Durango. Jonathan Fibonojji once again by the Animas River in beautiful Durango, Colorado. You know, I've said before that there are two Colorados or two Durangos. There's Durango, New Mexico, and then there is Durango, Colorado. And you know, I grew up in Oklahoma, so whenever I talk about the beauty of Durango, it's really, I guess the word of the day is juxtaposed. It's the beauty of Durango for me is really juxtaposed of being that kind of foster kid family living with grandparents and cousins and neighbors and whoever would take me in at the time, and growing up in beautiful Oklahoma, in Duncan, Oklahoma. Now Duncan, Oklahoma I'll always be the kid from Duncan, Oklahoma, 1821 Terrace Drive, baby. So whenever I talk about the beautiful Durango, I'm talking about just a land that's beautiful, and it's as cliche as this sounds, there is rarely a week that goes by that I don't just literally just go, thank you, Jesus, this is so beautiful. You know, and here I am, this is my second year in Durango. Remember, I moved to Sausalito to really pursue a day trading job. I wanted to work for a hedge fund because, you know, I'm 41, and, you know, part of this journey is evolving. And I don't know how long you've been following this journey, but really the evolution of evolving. I had kind of a civil trial where, you know, my ex-wife went cunt, and, you know, and she made it nearly impossible for me to have any sort of visitation. And then I ran a company for 10 years. I built a correspondent mortgage company that served all of Texas. And at first we were just an Austin-based company. And then I grew that correspondent lending company. It was an online company. So I was one of the first fintechs before there was fintech, mylendingplace.com. If you are in the market for a fintech, you want kind of a turnkey, and I mean literally a turnkey mortgage correspondent company. I would love to talk with you. What happened kind of in a nutshell is one day one of my banks, Flagstar Bank, decided they wanted to kind of violate some RESPA. I'll talk a lot about Flagstar down the road. Down the river, we'll revisit Dodd-Frank and how the next housing crisis is already starting, and banks like Flagstar and First Funding out of Dallas. And we'll talk all about all kinds of stuff like that, and how the next financial 9/11 is still, it's on its way. And how I saw, being a correspondent lender and having these inside relationships with these banks, I'm seeing the bullshit start again. And so all that happened in a nutshell is these larger banks took advantage of Dodd-Frank, and they're kind of doing Dodd-Frank 2.0. And so they pushed a lot of the smaller brokers out. And so I kind of used that as sort of, you know, the writing was on the wall. It's time to do something else. And my ex-wife making my custody to see my children so impossible. That's why I do so much advocacy for Texas 2503. If you watch this channel, you'll realize that, you know, men's rights in civil cases, that's a really, really big deal. And what is a man's rights activist? I don't know, but, you know, here I am 2017, maybe 2020, we'll start taking men's rights in civil cases more seriously. But, you know, there has to be the first Paul Revere. So here you go, John Fibonojji ringing the bell for the next Dodd-Frank, Texas 2503 in Texas. And of course, any state you live in, you know, there's custody laws, but rarely do women have to really deal with that, or really they're not held accountable. So it just makes life very difficult for men. So that's how I've kind of become a men's rights activist. So here I am, you know, by the riverbank of Durango, Colorado, and I moved here and I said, you know, where do I want to live and what do I want to do? Well, so I said, well, simple. I want to live in beautiful Durango. Initially, I said I wanted to live in Pagosa Springs, but I just love Durango so much. So I moved here, and then after a year here and just loving it, I decided to pursue another dream, and that is just to really work for a hedge fund, to use all my years of trading. I said, you know what, I may not be the smartest guy in the room, but I'm certainly not the dumbest one in the room. So let me take my talent, my 20 years of trading really seriously. And I studied this economic theory called Elliott Wave, and really, really took it seriously. And I learned to day trade in beautiful Durango, Colorado. And that's again why you'll see a lot of day trading videos on this channel. And if you would like to learn to day trade, I would love to be your day trading teacher. Just pay me a ton of money and I'll be happy to do that. But as this channel has evolved and as I've traveled, I went to Sausalito, I taught at UCLA for a little bit, I even did a little bit of comedy at the Comedy Store. God really just started opening these opportunities up to me. And in doing that, my heart was sort of revealed for the first time. And there's a lot that I could say about how conflict and adversity really brings your heart out. And I learned that I love journalism, I love film, I love photography, and I love teaching, obviously. And so all that came out of just sort of a Job-like experience of kind of losing my family, even though I still see my kids. I haven't seen them in 3 years, and I still email that court in Muleshoe going, hey, Texas 2503 is still the law, even though you're good old boys out there, the Texas 2503 is still the law. But what happened is they divested me of counsel, so they think that, because I don't have some federal lawyer behind me, that they can just ignore Jonathan Fibonojji. Well, maybe they can, but eventually, we'll bring a federal petition against that city and Littlefield, and we'll show them how important federal law is relative to Texas 2503. But that's down the road if God wills that. My job is to be the person that has the courage to speak about really ridiculous things, such as like men's rights in civil cases, and how important it is for men to pursue their dreams and to not wrap their lives up in a business. These are all the things you already know. In fact, Jonathan Fibonojji is probably not going to tell you much that you don't know. It's probably just going to remind you and hopefully stir the Spirit of God within you so that you will pursue your own dreams and take those seriously. So one of my dreams is to be a freelance journalist and travel. Travel for, like, say, the San Francisco Chronicle or the New York Times or LA Times, or maybe just work off invitation. Like I would love to photograph and report on the Parisian catacombs. Did you know that the city of Paris is literally built upon a cemetery? I didn't, and I would love to photograph that. In fact, is there any more photographic challenge of, if you know anything about photography, of how delicate light is, and using too much light kills it, and using too little doesn't, and so boom, how do you photograph the Parisian catacombs so people in Duncan, Oklahoma, or Durango, Colorado, or Sacramento, or San Francisco? So that's just one of the things that I love. So here, I'm sending all these videos, I'm sending all these resumes to different news outlets, and I'm like, hey, take this seriously. I would love to be a community journalist. And they're like, what's a community journalist? I'm like, well, it's sort of what happened a long time ago before fake news came into fashion. There was a day when there was legit journalism. And journalism has kind of gone by the way of TMZ and Fox News or faux news. But it doesn't have to be that way. And so one thing that I want to do is use the convenience of YouTube, the convenience of some of these technologies, and kind of go guerrilla and say, let me at least contribute to journalism the best I can. And so one thing I want to do is I am applying for different writing jobs and photojournalistic jobs. I'd really like to stay in nature cities like Colorado or California, but I'm open to any opportunity. And so while I'm going to send you a resume, you may even get this link of Jonathan Fibonojji and kind of what I could bring to your news station or your print magazine, or maybe you're just looking for a freelance journalist to kind of cover stories. Or maybe you're just in these areas that I'm at and you'd like me to kind of photograph an event, perhaps like a wedding or a funeral. Or in fact, just recently in Durango, there was a guy that came to town and he was talking about homelessness. And his ministry, he's not calling it at that, but his ministry of homelessness is he'll go up to a homeless person, buy their sign, and he's bought, I don't know how many signs of homeless people. And he's here in Durango talking about homelessness, probably living in a hotel. And there are topics that are so important that are just not going to make the national news, So here's kind of some bullet points of things that I would like to talk about, or that I would likely cover for your newspaper or your news station. Is obviously men's rights and the things that affect men's rights, like how men are treated in civil cases or even criminal cases. We'll talk about homelessness. We'll talk about how homelessness is really misnamed, and the fact that there's a lot of people that are homeless. For example, the joke is that women don't go homeless; they just go in Tinder. and how a lot of domestic violence situations are really because those women don't have any other place to go. In fact, that was one of the stories that I grew up in, where my mother literally, just because of poverty, put us through, hell and back. And are we really calling homelessness when really it's about poverty? And now we have these regulatory bills from the government that are making it even more difficult to even get jobs. In fact, most jobs these days require licensure. So you have to get a license. And so how do regulations like Dodd-Frank, so for example, with Dodd-Frank, a bank can say you're not going to work here unless you have a 700 credit score. Well, for most people, they don't care about Dodd-Frank, but you might care about how credit scores will limit your ability to get a job. Here's a train coming. Here's some other trains that are coming. Bitcoin, cyber currencies, and how that's a really, really important story. And how the Fourth Amendment and Aaron Swartz, who is Aaron Swartz? We'll Google that. Email me Americano417@gmail.com. Beautiful train. 473, baby! See if I can get them to show me some deuces. Email me Americano417@gmail.com. I would love to be your Marley and me community photojournalist. Love to come photograph your event. Just pay me a ton of money. You'd like to learn to day trade. I'd love to teach you. Love to keep my skills sharp. It took me 20 years to learn how to do it. Email me Americano417@gmail.com. San Francisco Chronicle, LA Times, New York Times, Comedy Store. In fact, I love comedy, and I saw on their Facebook page that they're doing a podcast. And man, I would love to do the podcast for the Comedy Store in LA. There's something very holy about Mitzi's house. Mitzi Shore started that beautiful thing, and there needs to be more Mitzi Shores. You guys be good. Email me Americano417@gmail.com. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Close out with a beautiful Durango, Colorado. Email me Americano417@gmail.com. Thank you for taking this journey with me.